Gentlemen, how are we doing?
Great, good to be here.
Good morning.
Yes. Yes, Adam and Tom, very much welcome to the Bought the T-shirt podcast. And we're here to talk about Save a Warrior. It's a worthwhile cause if there was ever a cause that's needed at the moment. Just the stuff that was on Facebook last night alone is upsetting, tragic. Wishing you could get people from where they are to where I'm guessing we've all come.
Mm.
Start with Adam. Do you want to tell us a bit about your service, Adam, so our friends out there can get an idea of who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having us, Chris. And I joined the Marines in 2000, and I was very fortunate to escape any injury in training, and passed out as an original. So just did it once, and I got a wonderful draft of 4-5 Commando. Um, Things were going fairly well up to that point. 9/11 is happening in the peripheries. 4-5 is about to deploy, and my father is going through some struggles, and I'm going through financial struggles. So there's a lot of pressure at that point, and it was a bit of a dip from the peak experience of King Squad, and then going down to being, basically an earthworm among giants at 4-5 Commando, Falkland vets included, and it all going off. And so I say this because it's a pivotal moment in the rest of my story. I had an acute breakdown essentially, and I was isolated, one man accommodation, and I attempted to essentially take my life. And were it not for another bootneck at the time, who forgot his wallet on his way out on the piss with the lads, stumbled up the stairs, sort of woke me out of my stupor, and managed to crawl to the door. And he came in, patched me up, saved my life, and that's where that moment of recovery begins for me. And as much as of an acute descent as it was back in 2001, this is 2002. The 2001, the ascent was pretty acute as well, and it was all done within uniform, rehabilitated within the corps, thanks to my mother, who convinced the right people to allow that to happen. And I soon found myself, at Hasler at a Whale Island, sort of Kushti number, to sort of just get my bearings again, really, and find my feet again in uniform. And from there, I met the RSM of well, the branch sponsor for the landing craft, Tim. I want to say Tim Salmon, might be wrong. Essentially, he was like, "So tell me about you then. What do you like?" I said, "Well, I like anything to do with the water. I grew up in Tenerife. I'm an island boy, so anything." He went, "Oh yeah, perfect. You'll love the LC branch." And I did, and I joined in 2002, did my LC3s, and very blessed again to get a brilliant draft at 539, where I spent best part of 5 years. And from that moment on, really the career was fun. Married, had two children in service. Eventually, the pressure of family, and I used to deploy all the time with 539. We were away all the time, and it was great fun for me, but not so much for her and the kids. So made the decision to leave beginning of 2009, which then that puts an end to the military side of things. But during that whole period, I was very, very acutely aware of mental health, struggles of a particular flavor within uniform, and how it was or wasn't discussed. And so that really put me on a trajectory to later in life dive into the psychology aspect of things and spiritual nature of things. That's my military career. So I'll stop there and hand over to Tom. Otherwise, I'll rant for days.
Yes, Tom, go for it.
Yeah, I'm just itching to talk about Adam's love for the water and his rekindling of spearfishing. And I was thinking, like, if you love all things water, getting out into Port Solent, I don't think there's much spearfishing in there, pal. But yeah, so I joined the RAF Reg at 18, around about 2003, off the back of watching the Sky News reels in 2001 for 9/11. And, it was at that age, at 16, I knew where I was going to go and what I wanted to do. My granddad was in the Navy. He was a frogman. So I had this sort of, want to please, want to do right by him and make him proud. And I made a decision at an early age that the military was where I was going to go. I wasn't doing very well at secondary school either. Let's be honest with that one. I disengaged at school at an early age due to uh, a fairly ferocious bout of bullying from year 7 right the way through to year 11. So I thought, join the military, get away from where I was living in southwest London, and go and see the world. It's had a fairly, what I would class as distinctly average career. Didn't, up until a certain point, didn't engage, didn't really do much, didn't want to go for courses, didn't want to push myself. I was really happy just going on the piss with the lads Monday to Friday, and then on a Saturday as well, and then being extremely hungover on a Sunday, and then kicking it all off again on a Monday. But so that was my battle rhythm from '03 to 2008, really, in Newquay, Cornwall, of all places. And then there was a tour in 2007 at Basra Cobb, and those that deployed out in southern Iraq around that time will know that the Jam were like really switched on with how they was using IDF and mortars, and was just giving everyone there a pasting. And I took that took a massive toll on me. We lost a couple of blokes. We lost 3 men in one strike, and I pretty much gave up on life. Really, I resigned to the fact that a rocket was going to come and take me out in my sleep, and that would be it. So that would be okay if I sought help and had a chat about with someone, a chat about that with someone at the time, but returned home, carried on drinking, but still kept this feeling inside of, well, I'm already dead. I'm living on borrowed time, and I don't really value my life anyway. So I just kept on rolling through and didn't take care of myself for quite some time thereafter. And for fast forward to 2015, a few more tours, and uh, I had a massive question about who I am, why I'm here, didn't like who I was, and come up with the idea of driving my car off a roundabout at speed to make it look like a car crash. Um, as soon as I hit the rumble strips, I slammed my feet on the brake and performed a maneuver around this roundabout and come out the other side. Realised it wasn't a good idea, and then called me mum just for a hi, just another Tuesday chat, and then lied about that right the way up until July 2022. Wrong, July 23, when I went over to America and sat the seat with Save a Warrior and the US team, and got real about suicide and my own dislike for myself. And now we're sat here having a wonderful chat with you, Chris, and it's not all doom and gloom. This thing, what we talk about. So I'm interested to get this into a positive chat as opposed to
Yeah, I think our audience are probably struggling to get their head around the fact that there's roads in Cornwall.
yeah. Well, there's certainly 12-foot high hedgerows, um, and you can't see around the corner. But
Yes,
that
Newquay's was a firm favourite of ours for a piss up at the weekends when we were teenagers.
yeah, damn right. And all things out on the table. I went into the military with a good drinking habit anyway. Um, and I was like, well, where do I want to go? where do I want to get posted? I don't want to go to Lossiemouth. Don't want to go to Uxbridge. I want to go to Honington. Newquay sounds pretty good. We'll have a go and we'll have a tear up down there. And I went to one squadron, A, because there was a few blokes that I knew there from basics, but B, I just wanted to go on a smash in Newquay. And young kid, impressionable, got in with the good drinking crowd on one squadron, and my drinking problem basically went unnoticed for a long, long time, and yeah, it was almost encouraged.
Yes, that's the curse of alcohol, isn't it? We can come on and talk about that. So, how did you guys meet?
Yeah, it's a bit of a beacon that was put out by myself when I returned from America, having sat in the seat myself because I'd been on an exploration to find a solution to this thing that's accosting veterans at the time. All things to do with suicide, mental health, and all the struggles on the spectrum. So I've been on the lookout, having trained as a hypnotherapist, having trained as a life coach, doing my thing one to one. I knew there was something that we were missing as a community, not addressing the problems. Many men were talking of this like talk therapy that hadn't worked for their PTSD, and the drugs that they were being given for their PTSD, and they're just time after time after time there was the same old pattern. They were stuck. There was just this stuckness about. It wasn't a solution. There was nothing there. So I just thought, this ain't right. This can't be right. And so eventually someone reached out from America, the former CEO of Save a Warrior over there, and he said, "Look, I've been reading your articles, and you're putting your finger onto something. We call it the thing under the thing, and I'd love to invite you over to have a chat with us and see what we do, because I think you could, potentially use this in the UK." So sure enough, I went over there and spent a few weeks there and embedded into the whole thing, and then that was it. I found it. I found the thing that I was looking for, and so I came back to the UK and just went on full send transmit, putting on webinars for anyone who would listen. And it just so happens that one of Tom's, is it flight sergeants?
Yeah, mate. Yeah,
Yeah,
Dickie Polish.
Dickie. Yeah, he was on it, and this obviously through the magic and the mystery of the algorithm gods on LinkedIn, Tom got wind of it and was like, well, if he's going on it, if it's good enough for him, and I respect him, then maybe I should have a look at this webinar that this bloke Adam is putting on. And so sure enough, at the back end of that, Tom was just like, look, I don't know how I can help or what, but I need to help. Let me help you with the marketing outreach, because what you're doing is great. This is really important. And it was just something about Tom's energy, his willingness, and his honesty that I was like, yeah, this is just the person that I basically put this webinar on for, because as I said, it was a beacon for me. Like, hey, there's this thing, I want to bring it here to the UK, help, and I can help. Right? It was kind of like that, and very much Tom responded to that, and that's how we met. And initially, we had a professional relationship in that he was doing marketing for my coaching company. So we were doing it that way as well. And eventually Tom, it was clear to me that Tom was somebody who has to be part of Save a Warrior in some capacity. He then went to America, sat the seat himself, thinking it was a kind of research project. He's like, oh, I've got to go to America to figure out where it all started, and 2 minutes before you roll in and crossing the threshold of that transformational experience, the tubes turn on, and holy shit, I'm actually in this. This is actually for my healing, and off he goes. And Tom will tell you a better version of that. But
Can you just
that's how we met.
Can you just tell us, Adam, when you say the thing behind the thing, what can you expand upon
sure.
what that actually is?
Sure. Yeah. So, most of us who join the military, if 100 people join the military, you're looking at 20% of them having adverse child experiences of a certain degree. Okay. And that's essentially what it is. So complex PTS is, something happened to us from the age of 0 to 18, and we made it mean something about us. It's a survival mechanism. We all have it. Biological survival adaptation. Becomes a maladaptation when it's not regulated there and then. And so when another thing happens, or something that should happen that didn't happen, neglect. And, when this compounds, we end up with a bunch of survival traits. And our brain tries to wrestle. Bear in mind that our brain at that time, from 0 to 18, goes through its development. 75% of the brain is developed within that age range. The rest develops up to the age of 25, 26. So we have no prefrontal cortex. So from that age. And so we logically cannot navigate and say, look, it wasn't me, right? It was my parents they didn't realize, or my father didn't realize, or whatever's going on with them. But we don't have that capacity. So we end up with a bunch of survival maladaptive traits. And that's where the military gets us, We haven't got a prefrontal cortex. So I don't know about you, but I made some pretty big decisions from the age of 18 to 24. I was married, I had kids, and I hadn't fully developed my prefrontal cortex. So we're making some massive life-altering decisions at that age. And it's no wonder that that's where the military gets us. And look, that thing under the thing goes unnoticed largely in the military, because these maladaptations that are ultimately going to hurt that individual are actually very well suited for military life. The sort of element of resilience that comes out of the back of that experience of adverse child experiences. I remember serving alongside lads who had a horrific upbringing that they would share with me sporadically. And when I was getting thrashed and beasted and shouted at and all the rest of it, that was tough, right? But for them, it's like, listen, there's no belt with buckle getting whapped around my face, and they got scars, or they were abused, and I've got hot food, I'm good. I've got a clean uniform, I'm good. I've got a roof over my head, I'm good, right? There was a lot of that. And so that's the thing under the thing. It goes unnoticed. And then in our service as adults, we go through our service and our experience, and then what happens is a pancaking layering effect happens when we have moral injury. That is to say, we did something that we knew we shouldn't do, or we were supposed to do something and we didn't do it. So there's the element of guilt going in there, that moral injury. And then there's, PTS and our experiences of trauma in witnessing what we witness, and those traumatic events. And so that there compounds onto the complex PTSD, and that compounding, basically, when they leave the military, is a one big knot. It's one big ball, a mess that is confounded and that is misunderstood to a great degree. And talking therapy typically doesn't do a very good job at creating the distinctions and the separation to create the unstuckness that is ultimately going to lead to their healing. And so that's the thing under the thing. And the way, Save a Warrior delivers that transformation in a 72-hour window. And 72 hours is intentional because that's the sort of timeline that the healthcare system has for veterans over there, that they try to sort of find a resolution or a solution within the 72 hours. That's their sort of framework. And the founder, Jake Clark, decided to he understood the system over there was broken. Suicide rates are outrageous in America. And he was like, this ain't right. This ain't right. And so he looked at the system, the existing system of what was going on there. And he said, right, well, I'm going to use that and prove to you that we can do amazing things within that 72-hour period and facilitate a transformation. Because that's how ultimately what needs to happen, is a transformation.
Yeah, that's amazing, Adam, because you're literally, I'm 55 now. You're the first person I've ever met that gets it.
Wow.
Yeah. I've been saying this for years, is the vast majority of us, our complex trauma comes from childhood. The military can compound it with triggering events or whatever. And, but would you agree? I mean, Tom, you can come in here. Would you agree that the military, it acts as this cozy umbrella where you don't really have to deal with the aspects of life that when you leave the forces all become very real, like paying your bills and dealing with an employer who might be an absolute knobhead, and being in a balanced relationship. And then of course all that all the trauma comes to bear. We go to the maladaptive coping mechanism, which is the alcohol or the substance misuse. The spiral starts. Then it's the partner, the girlfriend or the wife saying, listen, Chris, I can't put up with this. Sorry, I'm taking the kids to the grandma's. So what do? You do that more. And yes, Tom, am I sort of in the right ballpark?
Bang on. I mean, the word spiral, I think we would translate that to drift. So something happens, drift. Something happens, it just from it being a nice straight line from point A to B, of a beautifully holistic life, which is like nothing happens. From these early years, when stuff happens there, when events happen, when things happen to us, it just kicks off, and you've got like the magnetic deviation on your compass to translate it to the audience. It just knocks it, and it just goes off half a degree, and then over time, over 30 years, 40 years, you're now bang off course, and you don't realize it at the time. From personal experience, I didn't see how messed up I was when I was in it. The drinking habit, the lying, the cheating, the I mean, lying and dishonesty are the same thing, aren't they? But the just completely um, inside I'm one person, and externally I'm showing something completely different. This is what I need the world to see, to hide what's going on for me internally. And it's a pattern. It is a repeatable thing. It does show. Um, and I think those that are aware and trained in this world, the only thing you've got to look at to spot it in someone is here in the eyes. Um, you can you can see trauma in someone's eyes, whether they're looking directly at you with that wide-eyed glare, or they won't look you in the eye, and they'll do anything but sort of like they may glance, but they just won't connect with you because for whatever reason is there for them. And that's one of the things that we coach and coax and encourage very early on in our program, is that this is where the love is, this is where the support is, and these are the gateway to the soul. And if you can sit there and be with that and look for the support when you're about to say something that you said you was going to take to the grave, now you're making progress forward. So
Yes.
and just one more thing on that. When I left America and I came home, that that connection with the guys that I sat there and being able to look them in the eyes, I missed that. I missed that so much because I went deeper and I connected with those men in such a condensed period of time, um, and connected with them on a level that I hadn't in 14 years of service, protecting the men left and right of me on the metaphorical battlefield. So, and that's one of the things I'm looking forward to in every single cohort that we've got coming up, is watching that transformation in the eyes, and seeing the smile and the life and the weight lift on every single person that comes through. That's my look forward to.
Yes, well done, fellas. So, should we talk a bit about ego and identity? Like
Yes, please.
I very much shy away now from sort of, I don't know, donning my green beret as I might have done for charity events and for my podcast in the early days. It was never my identity. It was just a very quick way of gaining subscribers once they realize you've served in an elite force. And I got to a point where I morally couldn't do it anymore. I walked out the gates of Stonehouse Barracks in 1995. I didn't even look back, to be honest. It was a job. It was all right. It was pretty shit for quite a lot of the time, and we all knew it. We used to spend most of our time discussing how shit it is. I'm not being,
Monkey.
it's very special in another way. Of course, it is. I mean, I ran endurance course. It was the potential recruits course, so before I'd even got into training, and I was so hanging out my ass, and I would not give up. And the reason I would not give up is I would not let my parents, who by this time kicked me out twice in my life, homeless at 15 and homeless at 17, I would not give them the satisfaction of calling me a failure. So I really, really relate to what Adam was saying. But
Yeah.
But I've got this thing. I mean, for me to progress spiritually in life, my identity doesn't lie in a funny coloured hat that I wore when I was 18 years old. It's just, I think it's so toxic I mean, I'm not talking about like going to reunions and having good relationships with the lads you serve with. All that's brilliant. But I think to progress forward, it's about what you do today, is it not? And what the connection you make with the divine, whatever people want to call that.
Yeah, I could happily riff on this. Let's see if I can articulate a map, because it's good to locate language. So if we were to, I'm going to reverse engineer back from a holistic human. So a healed human, a whole human, right? We often refer them as whole. They're complete, right? They're not fractured. They're not disconnected, right? Humans are designed for two things: connection and struggle. Suffering is a choice, and we'll come on to that in a minute. But so we're designed for that connection, and that connection ripples throughout our entire reality and being, and that connection to the divine, all the way to the connection to our body and our animal side. So we have to have these connections, as well as our lateral connections of family and friends and culture and community, right? So drawing the map, if we were to picture ourselves as a circle, whole, and that really could also be described as spirit, soul, that essence, that ineffable, the science can't track it thing, right? That's us, that's whole. Now we are split in two. We're split into a conscious awareness and an unconscious awareness, right? So it's just conscious and unconscious. This is all a Jungian concept, by the way, Carl Jung. And in the awake conscious half resides our ego and our awareness of self, right? But there's an ego axis that comes right from the animal aspect of us. This desire, this urge, this predisposition to survive, to eat, to procreate, right? And were that to be left alone, i.e. nothing happened to us when we were growing up, it was all a very nice, pleasant experience, right? Childhood experience. It does happen, right? It's hard for us in this game to imagine that, but it does. There's two parents' households, loving, you were reassured, you were pushed in the right direction when you needed encouragement, right? You weren't spoiled, right? It was all of that, right? It's a nice, balanced, holistic approach where the ego is not affected by those things that happened, and the ego axis is not doesn't have the echoes of you're not lovable, you're helpless, you're alone, you're defective. There's none of those whispers coming, right? Now, what happens is when those whispers do come, right, and we call that the manager, it's like, you're not good enough, who do you think you are, right? These adaptive things. It affects the ego, the sense of self, right? And the more intense those whispers are, the more location of we think that we are the ego. So the ego becomes this predominant locus, central point of who we are. Now, this is a person that has never gone into the shadow realm. They're unconscious, because that is where all the whispers are coming from. That's where all the stuff is. That's where all the happenings are, right? That's where all the shadow material is. So we don't go there. So we just exist in this half. And in this half, there's this tyrannical ego, who's ultimately, the ego is terrified. He's terrified of dying. He's terrified of engaging with authenticity. He's terrified to looking at the light, because the light will shine into his shadow and reveal stuff. That's got to not happen. So in order to do that, we have to protect ourselves. So what the ego does, smartly, is create an exterior shield that we call the persona. Now, the persona is this egoic mechanism that happens, and we live in that world. We live in that dimension. That is where you get this bully archetype. It's where you get this loudmouth that's over masculine, like, you know, really whatever. The persona forms. If you chuck a uniform on top of that, if you chuck elite labels on top of that, if you chuck, like, you know, all of these things, millionaire, successful, whatever, all it does is reinforce that pattern. Unfortunately, that is a very unstable structure psychologically. And if you are to bump into that person, if you are to scratch or maybe somehow touch a nerve, what you'll see is a reaction. There's a snappiness, there's a reaction to it. And all of that is the ego's immune system just coming to the front. And that can be in a number of ways, right? That can manifest itself in a number of dysfunctional patterns and ways. And we've all been there. That flash. Oh, mate, I need to flash. Yeah, it's that reaction. We've hit something. If you were to question their authority, question their rank, you know, you're trying to engage with them as a person, but you're actually talking through their persona. Very difficult to have a real connected, authentic relationship with that human being. And so that's the ego. It's self-protective. It's the main emotion that anchors it is fear. On the other side of fear, and I don't mean fear of facing the bullets. I don't mean bravery that we see in uniform, you know, going out there and just running at the bullets. That's bravery. That's not courage. There's a distinction. And so, you know, that is not fear. We've all conquered that type of fear. But the fear of authenticity, vulnerability, the fear of going there, some people call it Pandora's box. I don't like that description, but it helps people to sort of realize the nature of it in many ways, is what anchors in that ego. And so, you know, for us is to create transformation in that domain and move the local position on the map from the center being in the ego, move it down a bit into that middle line of the conscious and unconscious. Put yourself in that central point of focus. Then you can observe the ego. Then you can observe the shadow material and engage with it and interact with it and allow it. Then you can observe when you used to have the persona, right? And we have various different techniques and methods and processes to move that central point. And then when you get there, what you start to experience is a sense of calmness, clarity, and there's a certain confidence about you. You're more creative. You have access now to an increased terrain on the map, if you will, that once was very scary. But once you voluntarily turned and faced it, you realized, wow, there's so much richness here. There's so much good stuff that I've been cutting off and not using. And, you know, it has multitude of benefits to do this type of work. And not least, it releases tension. You have less addictive tendencies. You have probably less weight problems, joint problems. It's a psychosomatic experience. You begin to heal on multiple planes. And so that's how I would map out the ego and where it comes from. Ultimately, it's our survival, right? But there's a cost. If you're living your life from that ego center, there's always a cost. And the cost essentially is your vitality. It's that ability to look at someone in the eye and just have an I-thou relationship with their soul through the eyes and just be at ease and just be able to listen and just be able to have a conversation where you're actually not wanting to win the conversation or defeat the other. It's just allowing. It's just presence. It's peace, and it's being able to sleep soundly at night. That's a big one. Because a lot of our guys, when they come to us, can't sleep. Because that chatter is there. So there's multiple things there. Yeah, I cede the mic.
Yes.
That sleep thing's a massive one. I mean, and sometimes now, even with this new understanding of things, I still have troubled sleep. But instead of now fighting that voice, I can sit up in bed and I can, go into a meditative state through Saber Warrior's warrior meditation, and just calm that inner voice. And by the end of it, I can then just lie back down and usually just drop straight off. It's about awareness, I think, and I'm better at doing it. I'm certainly not. I don't float when I cross my legs. I'm not. I'm not certainly not a monk at this game of meditation. But I do understand that is one of the daily practices that I must do in order to keep that line straight for me. I have done it every single day since leaving Warrior Village. 460 days now, I'm counting. It's a really good bit of kit, that Warrior meditation bit, and I think in that, correct me if I'm wrong here, Ads, I would say that's an open doorway to step through into that unconscious and sit there and almost represent that side of it whilst being, for want of a better word, awake. And whatever comes up for me in that meditation, and I've remembered things that I suppressed and forgot in meditation, and woke up completely, sometimes elated because it was a good thing that I remembered, and sometimes in floods of tears, because it was a deeply horrific thing that I'd forgotten. So and the more I do it, the easier it becomes to be with that stuff, and that's my internal scorecard. The more I can be with all of those stuff, those things, and the heart rate doesn't spike. I don't get agitated. I don't lash out. I don't become Tom pre-Saber Warrior. The more I can do that, the better I am internally, I think, and that's my mental health score, if that makes sense. So I rate myself on that.
I want to just highlight that, and the degree to which we can be with that which we couldn't be with is essentially the degree to our healing. That's how healed you are. And for the most part, the stuckness that people are in, parts of their life are not working when they come to us, right? And they get to a point where they finally admit that to themselves. And they go, do you know what? I'm done suffering. And so when they arrive at us, they're done suffering, but they're still stuck. It's that stuckness. And we allow them to experience for the first time how to look at life for the first time. It's like we give them these pair of goggles in a way, and they're suddenly like, oh, and they just see it unfold in front of them. And it's that moment, right, of awareness, of waking up, that moment, witnessing 10 people suddenly just lean in and go, oh, that's me. When they get that moment, it can take 30 seconds before they walk in across the threshold, or it can happen 2 hours in, 3 hours in, doesn't it? It will happen. Bam. That never gets old. That is my fuel. Honestly, it's like seeing those eyes, as Tom said, come alive when they have that realization. It's like, oh, and we're just, all we're doing is we say we're a production company that facilitates transformation, and that's what we do best. And yeah, it never gets old seeing that awakening experience, that moment happen before your very eyes. And it's what we do, why we do what we do.
Yeah, it's fascinating if you think, because if people are drifting, as you say, and desperately unhappy for a multitude of reasons, and obviously doing the things in their life that are keeping them on that trajectory, then this is offering an opportunity to heal, to use your past experiences, which we may think of as negative. So when people say to me, Chris, you really turned your life around, I say, no, I didn't. I just kept going. And I live in paradise, so I kind of must have had the perfect life, which is really ironic, isn't it? Because you think the stuff some of us went through in childhood, which wasn't pleasant, you'd think you'd really want to avoid. But you can be with that character that Adam described that didn't have any adverse stuff in childhood. They're probably a bit bland or unsympathetic or whatever the case may be. Do you want to tell us what your program involves? How can people sign up to it, and who's it aimed at?
Yeah.
Tom?
Well, we serve the military, police, and fire service audience, and they could be serving or veteran members of that unit. I mean, they could have even double hatted and gone from the military into the police or military into the fire service, or if they're really hardcore, done a little batch of all three. Who knows? It's the hybrid system, but essentially, someone that has served a minimum of 1 day in either of those three services, someone could have just gone through basic training and gone, you know what, this ain't for me. It qualifies you. They can head over to our website at saveawarrioruk.org/apply. And if you get rid of the /apply, the first button you'll see on that page is push to apply. Submit your application. Submit yourself over to a different way of being and living your life. From that point thereon, okay, and just getting to that point, pressing that button, okay, because I've been there, we've been there. There's this, there's a lot of courage that needs to be built up. There's a lot of realization that we're about to uncover some dirty, dark secrets here. There's a realization that we're going to go through some pain, and it's going to drag up a lot of old memories. So it's almost like a gravitational pull away from hitting that button. It's the hardest thing. But once they've hit that button, that will book a rostering call with Adam and I. And we then go through what Save a Warrior is, what it isn't, what the 3 days entail, and essentially give them that first display of ruthless compassion and an openness to talk about our own story. And without going too much into the depth of that hour and a half, you know, it really just at that point, we're just trying to ascertain if the individual is honest, open, and willing. Okay, and if they can talk a little bit and show a little bit of vulnerability and be with that, maybe the tears come out. You know, maybe there's a bit of a wobble in the voice, or maybe there is this, nah, I'm fine. Right? That's what we're trying to ascertain here in this call. Are they willing to go there just a little bit? We'll get to that later on if they do come with us. But you know, chances are they'll then, you know, come through, and then we'll basically have a 3-day transformational experience at our site, West Cornwall, Cabilla. Really looking forward to getting down there and being in that environment again.
Sorry, Tom, where is it?
So it's just to the side of Bodmin Moor. So the site is it's called Cabilla, Cabilla. The chap that is the owner and manager there, his name's Merlin, on the side of a mystical forest. You know, it's beautifully clean. It's crystal clear water coming through there. The air is so pure. There's lichen hanging off the trees where you just don't get that in anywhere in the country. And it's ancient. You know, I walked into that space and I just thought, there's something here. There's something about it. So it's absolutely.
Have you seen the Beast?
Uh,
Beast
no.
of Bodmin.
Well, I would argue that everyone carries that beast within them, metaphorically, and
we'll be releasing some beasts, that's for sure.
Fuck me, yeah. Well,
What is there a cost for this, guys?
God, no, absolutely not. Well, actually, that's a little porcupine. They've got to get their bus fare there. You know, that's their skin in the game.
Yeah.
And you know, you do that bit, we'll sort out the rest of your days, and we'll give you the tools in which, not the tools. We're not going to give you anything. We're just going to awaken and uncover what's already inside, and show how we do it to enable them to just press play on what's already there inside of them. That's a key. It's not a workshop. It's not a here, learn these processes so that you can. It's not that. And that's where I believe we differ from a lot of other elements out there. So
yeah,
once the 3 days are finished, pardon me, just to round up and finish, there's a 500-day support plan thereafter, weekly Zoom meeting, daily work, practice every day. Okay, and it's up to the individual to integrate that into their daily practice, but there is an accountability call every week, and that's laid out and structured. There we go. Sorry, man.
Is there any exercise on it? I mean, can people
Right.
expect to go jogging or yoga or something?
No.
No.
We're very specific about what it is that we offer in the way that we do it. They will sleep like babies, but that's because, you know, the brain uses up so much energy. Emotional work uses up so much energy. Emotions, by the way, they're just energy in motion. So when we finally access grief, shame, these are low vibrational energies that once released, we have to physically move that out and purge and release. That process, you'd be more knackered than that than a 30-miler at the end of it. And so no, the course has developed over the years. It used to be 5 days. They used a high rope access and teamwork and all the stuff of it. But that's just part of the natural developmental of something that's innovative and new. It goes through different phases, and that was a phase of what wows. But now we're in a phase of what works. And so now we've always been an iterative process, and especially in the beginning. Lots of iterations, lots of specialists, psychiatrists, advisors. It's been going for 12 years. And for the last 6 years, it's got refined to where it is now. and now it's in that really real sweet spot of refinement, and we're always, of course, one ear to the ground and sort of looking at the culture, because we are creatures that are enmeshed in culture. We don't, like I said, connection is what we're designed for. So we don't, we're all very aware of the culture and the influences and the tides and the insanity of the cult of culture that's out there, right? That sort of programs us to sort of behave in these polite ways, and that can influence us individuals when we're not aware of it. So there's always that, but no, there's no extra stuff. There's no fluff. There is no time for fluff. It's very much like 6 a.m. till sometimes midnight, right? We're in that space. We're in that zone, and yeah. Yeah, they're looked after from the moment they wake up to the moment they go to bed. They're fed and watered and everything, and we take care of all of that because it's we want them fully immersed in the experience.
Absolutely. I'm hesitant to say too much because I don't want to put anyone off from contacting you guys, but are they expected to abstain from drugs and alcohol for the duration?
It's a great thing to point out, and it is something that we catch and talk about in the rostering process as well. We do require what's called dry wood, and essentially, that comes from the rooms of recovery. But essentially, to have 30 days of sobriety is what we would love you to arrive with, because this work it requires us to have emotional access. So if we're numbed, right, through various ways, the chances of accessing what it is that we need to access is going to be limited. Very much like if you're on, these SSRIs and sort of numbing and taking the edge off those psychological pains. It just won't allow you to access what we need to access. So yeah.
If I may, like that 1 pint with dinner, my opinion, that counts as well. What that 1 pint with dinner just takes the edge off at the end of the day, doesn't it? Or that glass of wine at the end of the day, just sort of it just gives that, it's patchwork on the hard drive of life, isn't it? And just trying to numb at the end of that long busy day. So some would say, oh, I haven't got a drink problem, but I go through 4 bottles of wine a week. Hang on a minute, let's look at that. It might not be that I'm rolling around the floor at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, drunk, or turning up to the desk at 7:30 in the morning, drunk from the night before. But we are using a chemical to just take the edge off at the end of a day. And, doesn't, you can have 1 glass of wine or 2 glasses of wine of a night. You do wake up and have that foggy head in the morning. It is a powerful stimulant and depressant. So while someone may think, well, I've not got a drink problem, so I can have that glass of wine, I would urge, as an alcoholic myself, as a recovered guy that's now been over 2 years sober, look at that. Is it required? Plus, it's expensive. I mean, come on, let's look at that. Just as a practicality level, energy's going up, alcohol's going up. Look at that. Just that one thing alone. Save the cash.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Fellas, listen, on that note, I suggest we cut it short here. The reason being I want as many people to watch this as possible, and if we go on too long, people having busy lives will go, oh, I haven't got time to watch a 2-hour podcast. I'll give that, or they'll say I'll watch it later, and of course later never comes. So I think we've really covered the bases. Thank you ever so much. Personally, just thank you for your commitment in this area that very few people, I don't know, they very few people have accessed and have bothered to sort of, sorry, that's a bit of a judgmental word, but you know what I'm trying to say. The government would have it that PTS is just something you get in a war when you've seen horrible things. And that really helps the military recruiting process, that they're not actually being honest, are they? Many of us were very damaged from childhood, and yeah, very good for recruiting statistics and people going off to fight these wars, but not good for the veteran when he leaves the force and then has to deal with the reality of it. So Adam, Tom, massive thank you. Stay on the line just so I can thank you properly. I'm going to play us out and hit the record button off. Friends at home, now is the time. This is your opportunity, isn't it? If you're struggling, get in touch with these chaps. If you don't feel you can, speak to somebody. Pick somebody that you trust, someone that's going to listen, someone that's not going to go, well, what you need to do is just stop the drinking and you know, we've all been there, and it's we just want someone to listen, don't we? So yes, and as the mission of my Atlantic row in December is to shine a light for all struggling veterans. Many of us have been where you are. There is light at the end of the tunnel. It's phenomenally bright, and you too might just find yourself living in paradise. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks, mate.
Cause I've been living life right like I